Sunday evening again. It's the time when we have the Sunday podcast that we've been looking forward to so much. Maybe you guys recognize someone in the right hand corner, someone that I started these podcast shows with. So welcome back to the show, Dan. Of course, Aditya, I can hear your rain in the background. It must be hectic over there in India. This like what's going down there?
Yeah, it's been quite crazy. In the last month or so, we've had a cyclone, and you know, uh, thousands of homes destroyed, cars on the road. I mean, sorry, trees on the road and so on. So it's been crazy, and yeah, as you can hear in the background, it's been raining quite hard. But yeah, I guess it's nice to have the safety and security at home. How are you guys doing?
Nah, it's busy watching the Proteas at the same time. Actually, all of us, we wanted to commit to this podcast, of course, and obviously give you guys a show, even though the Proteas are playing and we're trying to watch. I'm not going to say the names because I haven't checked the score yet. Right now, I don't want to say the name before I jinx someone and say that they're in, and then they're not in. So let me just look quickly. Everybody else is obviously watching the game.
Well,
Ravi,
they just
Dan.
lost a wicket.
Yeah.
Sorry, I must just interrupt. Kyle Moreno is unfortunately out.
Oh my lord!
He just edged straight to Josh De Silva off the bowling of Kyle Mayers.
We're making Kyle Mayers look like Glenn McGrath at the moment. This is ridiculous. I mean, the test
Ball
match
is
is
like moving.
the test match is over, but like,
My
that is
flippin'
horrendous.
lord.
Scramble seam.
Kyle Mayers would play Premier League club cricket in South Africa at the most. That guy wouldn't make the flippin' Western Province team. If we're
But I mean,
honest.
really, they're playing.
Oh, he's got a son to his name already.
Well, so does Jason Gillespie. It doesn't make him a batsman.
You know what the problem is, for me personally. I really honestly think, right, that it's not necessarily that they're taking wickets. It's not that they're losing their wickets. It's the way, man, that they're losing their wickets. Obviously, there's certain batsmen that have shown how they're supposed to play on this particular wicket. I mean, Dean Alger showed it in his innings. I mean, over the two games, you could see obviously Quinton de Kock, the way he's measured himself and the way he's batted. It's just the way it looks very amateur, the way they're losing their wickets, and that's the concern over here. But I think particularly in his first test, his first innings that he played, I mean, I hardly ever see him play that shot in domestic cricket, and they almost trying things that are not what they're used to, or playing at a ball that you don't need to play at, or playing too much on the front foot when they know it's coming into that corridor of uncertainty. I mean, you are seeing the guys before you fall into the same thing over and over again. Is it not maybe those type of deliveries that Carl fell to now, and the type of delivery that Dean fell to? Even Aiden, to an extent. Aiden got a good ball, yes. But can't they be playing that off the back foot a little bit? Is there no way they can be doing that? Anybody can answer this one.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's definitely a case of the South African batsmen getting themselves out. They're not getting absolute peaches from Kyle Mayers, It's a lot of impatience. So I think, what was our lead going into this? It was about 150 odds. So we know we need another 50, 100 runs, and we've pretty much sealed this game, in my opinion. So there isn't that pressure to knuckle down and face 100 balls, to put on a stand of 100, 200, 300. And if you think about like a guy like Kyle Verreynne, he knows he's playing his last test match for how long? Temba Bavuma, our next test match is in December. We know Temba Bavuma will be fit, he'll come back in. So psychologically, can you imagine thinking, oh, this is my last test match for, could be a year, could be 2 years for all we know. There's the need to impress and to score runs and to get on top of bowlers. And maybe that's why he's gone now and chased the ball that he didn't need to. He wants to feel bat on ball. And we know Kyle Verreynne playing for the Cobras, he is a stroke player. He's not going to go in there and score 50 off 250 balls. He keeps the scoreboard ticking. That's the type of player he is. Even when his team's in trouble, he comes in and he bats at 3 and over. The Cobras can be 100 for 5, and he'll be batting at 3 and over. I agree with you. Markham got a peach, but Alger's been going out like that for a decade now.
Yeah,
literally. I mean, what's going to happen when he's facing Mitchell Stark and Pat Cummins and Josh Hazelwood? That concerns me. Yeah,
What?
I mean, yeah, go
What
for it.
happens
Sorry.
what happens if it's
Wagner.
us in that? What happens if it's us at Lords with a swinging ball
Yeah.
against guys like that?
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, I think the hole is in the middle order. Like I know the openers haven't done well. Markham hasn't had a good test. Olga's played a few silly shots. He scored some runs, but if you had to talk about where the holes are in South African cricket right now, it's not in the bowling department.
Yeah.
Our bowlers are
cricket
fine.
gone off. Sorry to interrupt. Quinto the Cock just went out.
Oh
The
Lord.
bowling of Jason Holden.
Okay.
I mean, it's not
So
a test series without a Proteas batting collapse. So, you know,
Aditya, we
it
spoke
is what
about
it
this
is.
earlier today. We had this conversation. How should the Proteas approach this? And we were saying that they probably need to approach it exactly the same way that they used to. Some fans would want to say no, they want to see a more attacking display and them being a little bit more like that. But being ruthless would be to tire out the West Indies bowlers. Take them into the third and fourth day if you have to. Like put on 400, 600. That's what I wanted to see. And that meant on this pitch that you needed to be patient. And none of them look like they've been patient over here. And I know we're kind of talking about it right now. I think we should keep all of this for when we do our review show of this whole particular series, etc., and talk about how this is. But this is poor batting. I'm sorry. There's nothing else. There's no way to put it. There's no other way to put it. It's
Well,
just
I mean,
absolute
Jason
poor batting.
Holden's the last one now where they got Quinto the Cock. That was pretty decent delivery though. What's concerning is that I think South Africa will win comfortably, because already they've got a lead of what is it, about 200 now, right? I think they'll take it to a lead of about 220 to 250 potentially. I mean, even if there is a collapse here, and I'm not confident enough in the West Indies batting lineup to pull a rabbit out of the hat. I'll be very surprised. You know, the top six will have to do something majestic in order for that to happen.
Remember
if I
Sri
look
Lanka
at,
2018, mate.
Right, you know what I'm saying. So, I'm just seeing that the delivery I got Quinto the Cock out. It's a brilliant delivery, and I'm wondering now. This is Jason Holder. He's bowling at about 125 at most. Can you imagine if Rabada is bowling from that end? What he can do, what Ngidi is going to do. So, to be honest with you, I'm as much as I'm overjoyed at the sight of this supporting the Windies, they still need to bat at the end of the day.
And Ashit, I'm being obviously I'm stretching it a bit. I don't really mean that, but score 500, 600 runs. So I basically just say I would have liked him to bat a lot longer. I would have liked him to put at least 300 on the board, 400. I wanted him to be ruthless from that perspective. And it was possible for us to bat for a full day and see where we get. But, I mean, this is just not what we want to see, Aditya.
It's not. It's not at all. And we talked about this earlier on the review show. One thing that Proteas need to really focus on is getting their techniques right. You know, I don't think the batters are equipped to face the ball swinging in both directions. Because again, as I said on the review show, there was a great analysis done on Virat Kohli's technique versus Shubman Gill and Rohit Sharma's technique, where Rohit Sharma and Shubman Gill had their front foot facing cover, which meant that they're not equipped to play the in-swinger, and they're most likely going to nick off the outswinger. Whereas Virat Kohli's front foot was facing the stumps, and therefore he would miss the ball that swung out sharply, but at the same time he can defend the ball that swings in. Now, if you look at the South African batters, like Aiden Markram, I think you look at the way he plants his front foot; it's facing cover. You know, so the ball that comes in is going to trouble him a bit. And there's also this analysis of the Duke ball where initially when the ball is new, you're most likely to score your runs square of the wicket. Your scoring range is not going to be straight or in the cover or mid-wicket region. It's going to be on either side of the stumps. So you have to be equipped for that, because once the ball gets older, that's when you start having the covers as an option, or you can score straight down the ground. So again, I don't know who's assumed the responsibility of batting coach in the team. But this is what we're seeing from the Indian team playing in England with the Duke ball as well. And I feel like the South Africans are playing a totally different game against a more potent bowling lineup. They would get exposed.
Yeah, that's the concern currently for me too. We want to see obviously our batsmen perform better, but it goes back to the title of this podcast, and obviously everything weaves in together. Are we too hard as South African fans on our players, and is it harder to please us as fans than other countries? I mean, we know personally, and I don't want to talk about him when he's not on the stream. I did invite him, but Aaron, for example, on how positive he is when it comes to the English players. Like English fans, generally speaking, back their players 100% into. They only complain after the fact. So you won't be hearing a lot of negativity during matches. Like while a match is on, you won't really necessarily be hearing a lot of negativity coming from them. I mean, unless after the match. So they're normally very positive. You see it in football too. When it comes to the England national team, like how hopeful they were. They almost to the degree they actually the exception to the rule in the way, because they are the extreme. So they go like, oh, our players are the best of the world, to, oh no, our players are the worst of the world. Where South Africans kind of come to a trend where we just like so hurt by the past and what has happened in the past that we just negative from the get-go. That's the first thing. I'm not saying all of us, but I'm saying when you obviously scan the social medias and you look at the comments, and you can't always listen to comments and social media trolls. And Dan will probably get it a lot on Twitter. He has a massive following on Twitter, so you would probably see it when if he makes a statement or tweet or something, like the difference of responses that you'll probably get.
They come fight me. Come fight me.
Yeah, so like the difference in opinions and how harsh we can be on our players. Like, I mean, I'll give a good example. KP's played 2 matches. People are already calling for his head. Aiden Markram scores a good 60, has 2 poor innings. People calling for his head. I mean, Dean Algar, probably the best opening batsman we've had in a long time. Another wicket fallen.
6 wickets down.
6 wickets down.
6.
So,
oh boy,
this is a mentality thing. And this is where I question Mark Boucher's coaching. Now, I don't want to blame this all on Mark Boucher, but my thing is that we need to talk about that, for example, as well, is we expected Boucher to come in and our batting to be sorted out. Because ultimately, Boucher is a batsman, known for his batting. A lot of people would say he was a very good batsman. If you don't look past his average, when you want to try and criticize him, people say, look past his average. And that's what that aspect of the game I thought he would sort out. And the mental side of the game, because he is known to be a mentally tough guy. But this batting collapse has got nothing to do with the conditions for me or the Duke ball. This has more got to do with approach and patience. That's how it looks to me. Because we showed that we can be gritty and we can fight it out. But everybody went out to exactly the same stroke play. They're pushing away from their body, not playing the line of the ball, getting a nick, caught in the slips, or caught to the keeper. Everybody's going out exactly the same way, or playing at the wide delivery and getting nicked out. Dan, I want to ask you now, because to chip in over here about this topic that we're speaking about. Is it hard? Do you think, from your analysis over the couple of years, maybe let's say the last 5 years or so of dealing with a lot of fans, do you think that it's harder to please us? Because even it's hard for us even to compliment good performances.
Yeah, you misunderstand though. South Africa has gone from one end of the spectrum to the other fairly quickly. I mean, we were the best in the world. We went from the best in the world to 7th, 8th in the world in like half a decade, like 5 years. We went from world beaters to struggling against the West Indies. So when you lose players like Smith, Amla, Callis, and de Villiers in a short space of time, and you want to replace them, you expect the replacements to replicate what was an unrealistic benchmark. You aren't going to replace Jacques Kallis. You aren't going to replace Hashim Amla. You aren't going to replace AB de Villiers. It's not going to happen. So you've seen us go through guys like Tienus de Bruin, who got a handful of test matches, got dropped. Zubair Hamza got a handful of test matches, got dropped. Peter Malan got 3 test matches, got dropped. I wouldn't be, Carl Verheyen has got 2 test matches now. He won't be around. Keegan Peterson, for all we know, if he could be replaced. He could be replaced if he fails 1 or 2 more times. But then you need to go and actually go back and look at Amla, Kallis, and de Villiers and what were they like in their first 20 test matches. I distinctly remember watching Hashim Amla bat and thinking, what the hell is this oak doing at an international level? He was batting at 6, and remember he had that sort of dodgy technique. And I just thought, like, this guy's not an international cricketer. I remember Dale Steyn, the first time he played against the Aussies, I think he went at 6 and over for a test match. And I just thought, like, what is this oak doing at an international level? And I'm not saying we're going to reproduce these players, but they are a good example of what happens when a player is backed for 20, 30, 40, 50 test matches. I think we are in a situation now, though, where we hype players based on their domestic performances. You and I don't really agree with this, but I think that our domestic cricket is very, very weak compared to what it was 5-10 years ago, and therefore performances at that level are not a good indication of what's going to happen at a test level. So we saw Tienus de Bruin, for example, he averaged about 60 at a franchise level before making his test debut. And I think he has a test average of 19. That doesn't happen anywhere else in the world. That does not happen in England. Dom Sabig will average 40 at a county level and 30 at a test level. Ollie Pope, these guys, it's too big a step at the moment. So what we do is we have unrealistic expectations of players that we're bringing in. We've overhyped them, and then we're obviously going to be disappointed because, first of all, they're not gonna match the benchmark which we've created in our minds as Amla, Kallis, de Villiers. That's every South African fan's benchmark. Dale Steyn, Werner Verlander, KG Rabada, Morne Morkel. That's the benchmark that we've created as South African fans, and nothing compared to that will ever live up to expectations. For example, a guy like Aiden, he's getting a lot of flack. The guy averages 41 in Test cricket. 41 in Test cricket. You know the average. How many countries have a pair of opening batsmen who average 40 or more? A pair of them. But we, in our minds, we're like, Graham Smith, he averaged 50, 100 Test matches. He was hitting double hundreds at 21. That's our benchmark. So we use that as our benchmark. We're like, Aiden's not cutting it. You know what I mean?
I want to talk about that. I want to talk about that extra. I just want to flesh that out a little bit more, what you're saying there, Dan, because it's very true. And it's something that I always say. And those players that you mentioned, Hashim Amla and Dale Steyn, and even JP Duminy, if you look at the guy in the early points of his career, in the early start of his career, and Hashim Amla, all of the guys that we're speaking about, even the youngsters when Jacques Kallis was young, and when Herschel Gibbs was young, when Graham Smith came in as a young captain, they had experienced top-class players around them. That is the difference. You are now putting pressure, the entire pressure of the entire nation, on players that are in their first or second test. So you either decide as a manager or as a coach to say to the public, we are going to be trying out things. We're going to be giving guys an extended run. We are going to be trying to find the perfect fit in our top 6 that complement each other. Because Rassie van der Dussen doesn't average anywhere near what KP averaged in the last 5 seasons, 6 seasons, if you look at domestic level. And KP's been averaging more than Rassie, but Rassie's been cutting it. But why? We have to look at those type of mindset, his approach to things, the way he is as a player, the way he thinks about cricket, the approach that he has in matches. His age and experience also counts a lot. You have to think about his age as well. That does count a lot in that as well. But now we're sitting here and we're looking at a guy like KP and Kyle Verheyen, who are all names that popped up when Zubair Hamza was batting. So when Zubair was at the full, he had a good start to his Test career. A 40 against Pakistan, a 60 in Indian conditions, the most difficult conditions to probably play in for South Africans. Yes, he comes back and he plays against the best bowling attack in the last decade and gets taken apart against England and got caught out. But that's the type of games you need to pursue. My point, the difference is between our domestic cricket and international cricket. It's not like England county cricketers are coming to the forefront and just whacking people all over the place and dominating in the Test arena. That's not also happening. There are guys that also look out their depth in the England national team. If it's not for Joe Root and not for Ben Stokes and it's not for all of those guys that stack up the runs, etc., and take them out of difficult positions, having those world-class players in the team around them helps. The problem that I have with the domestic cricket is not necessarily that the level is not the same as it used to be, which makes sense to me because obviously there was no franchise cricket in the years that we were watching when we're talking about the colours were coming necessarily through. That time there was, franchise cricket was maybe a couple of years into franchise cricket, and you're now having guys that are, I'm talking about back in the day before franchise cricket was around, those top class players were playing club cricket. So there's a lot of things that we need to think about when it comes to it, because they're not facing in international cricket. Okay, domestic cricket, you may be facing one Anrich Nokia, young fast bowler coming onto the scene, doing his thing, and you may be facing one of them in a match. The other one will maybe bowl about 120, will be inconsistent, might not be putting the ball on the exact place consistently, and you have obviously got a lot more looser balls to face than you would have at Test cricket. So that's where the patience game comes in. Because when you come to international cricket, you have four seamers that all put the ball on the same spot, that all know how to manipulate the conditions. South Africa is in a transitional phase at the moment when the rest of the world has found more or less their best first 11s that they got available to them, apart from a couple of positions that are different. England, mostly settled. They maybe have to fill in a couple of positions. Australia, majority of them are settled. Maybe have to swap a little bit, one or two positions. India, settled. New Zealand, settled. We're facing now a West Indian team who's in a similar boat to South Africa in a way. And we face the Pakistan team that needs to prove themselves. They're settled, but they need to prove themselves on the national stage now that they've had some experience. So when we become experienced, the other teams might be in transition, and more of them so. So then do we judge it on the same level? Do we say, no, South Africa's playing against a weaker opposition? Do they say that? I don't think that's going to be happening. I think we'll be riding that wave and saying South Africa is the best team in the world. And that's the type of depth that we don't analyze our game with. But I think that the new structure, and particularly the new structure, the way it's set up now with a lot of the cold pack guys coming back, a lot of international cricketers probably going to be playing in the series as well, the ones that are not playing T20 cricket, etc. That's going to help. That's going to help our game a lot. And the game has changed so much that you now got a lot more guys that play 3 formats than before. I mean, before you might have had guys only playing ODI cricket. Some of them will maybe only play Test cricket. So the rest of the time, that top quality is sitting there playing domestic cricket. Whereas now you've got basically the Test team, apart from Dean Algar and maybe Keegan Peterson. Now, if you're looking at the new guys, they all play white ball cricket, every single one of them. So you now got a situation where those guys are going to be playing in tournaments. They're going to be playing in white ball cricket, and they're not going to be in our domestic setup. So yes, Harshit, I'm saying England is settled, but not to the degree of where their whole 11 is 100%, right? There's a couple of... Let's listen, please. Gee-whiz. So anyway, I don't know Ravi, what you say about that, Aditya or Dan. Do you think that we should support our players once they got selected? It's not their fault they selected, if you understand what I mean. Should we not just then back our players and try to back them as 100% as best as possible? Because I remember Dean Algar also had a poor start to his Test career. Mm-hmm. And look how it turned out. He's now probably the number one opener in the world currently, if over the last 5 years or so, you could say.
Yeah, definitely.
Should we not back our players?
I agree. I think that it will take time. I mean, I think Dan referred some good points there about those massive voids that were left by the likes of Jacques Callis, Graham Smith, Vernon Philander. These are big players, gigantic shoes to fill. Smith was an opener. He was averaging, I think, about 49.7. So let's call it 50, right? 9,000 test runs to his name. Now, all of a sudden, Bakram comes in and he's not good enough, averaging 41. That's ridiculous. You have to look at various conditions. You have to look at some of the elements. The fact that some openers have to carry their bat as well to help the rest of the team.
Ravi, can I just add something in there that you said there? Because South Africa, this young team, so guys that are very inexperienced, the likes of, you got Aiden Markram, you got the like of Rassi van der Dussen. Okay, Rassi didn't play in this particular that I mentioned. You had Zubair Hamza, you had Aiden Markram, you had you had Thierry de Bruin, and you had Temba Bavuma that went to India. Okay, so Thierry de Bruin that went to India. India's probably the hardest place to tour right now for any team, even the best teams in the world.
Yeah, it's impossible to.
Sri Lanka, when the pitches are Sri Lanka at the time when they still had Herath, and he was probably the best spinner, one of the best spinners in the world at the time, and he's excellent spinner in history. You go there to Sri Lanka in spinning conditions when it's tough to play.
And you beat them.
No, we didn't. We didn't, unfortunately.
Are you talking about?
I'm talking before, but we went there. We went there with a lot of youngsters, and they got caught out because they haven't experienced that type of playing conditions to that degree. So it's where in South Africa, in our own conditions, and they don't perform. That's
a problem.
That's a problem. That's scary.
That's a big problem.
Now the West Indies, we should be able to play swing. We should be able to play seam bowling because we are known to have these spicy wickets, etc. But the difference over here is not that we're not used to playing seam, and this is a point that we can't play swing. It's more being patient and playing because it's consistency here. That's the key. You're now facing 3-4 bowlers that can keep the ball in one particular spot, which is different to you when you're playing domestic cricket. The Lions don't have 3 world-class seamers that are going to be bowling at you at exactly the same time. The Titans don't have 3 I'm talking about now when their Proteas are not in the side. So our youngsters coming to the system, they could be a little bit like taken aback because they're like, we are fine over here, but then now we go to international cricket and you're playing 3 world-class bowlers on the other end.
We suffer.
And that's where we're struggling because we're not patient enough. And I don't know if this is because how we trained out of school, because there's no longer format cricket in South Africa. Dan, we spoke about this previously. Aditya, we spoke about this constantly. About school cricket, you come out of school cricket, you play T20 cricket. Kaya majority week as time cricket. You play 1 day of time cricket or 2 days of time cricket. The rest of it is ODIs and T20s. You come out and you have to go play 3-day cricket. You've never you've never seen a red ball in your bloody life when it comes to like for 3 days in a row. How do you expect to have the mentality? Your brain is also a muscle that needs to be trained. You can't expect guys that are being conditioned to play the shorter formats to suddenly concentrate for a whole entire 6-7 hours in the middle automatically when they come into the game. It's not fair on players as well to do that.
No, definitely not. I fully agree with that. Like, I think it's part of the challenge is that, again, you've had for about from 2008 up until 2016, let's call it 2017, you've had a strong team. You had some really strong contenders for various spots. But now all of a sudden, there wasn't much of a succession plan when those guys left. So there's a massive gap. So that was a contributing factor already. Okay, that we didn't say, you know what, Carlos is going to retire at some point. We need to start figuring this out. Smith is going to retire at some point. We need to start figuring out a replacement for him. Dale Steyn is going to retire at some point. You know, with his various shoulder injuries or whatever, you should have been thinking about those sort of things beforehand. And I think on the bowling front, I think we sort of figured it out. And I think Shah Langerfeld's relationship with the bowlers now, I think you could see it's manifested itself in the series. I don't think they should form part of the critique. The critique should really come down to the batsman, as you said. We've tried and tested various accommodations over the years. Tinus De Bruin, you mentioned the Sri Lanka tour. If memory serves, he scored 100 in that tour. And those are difficult conditions to battle. Those are difficult conditions to battle. And the man looked.
But even with Tinus, did we give him a good enough opportunity? Like, did we give him a long enough stint to say, okay, cool, he can't play? I mean, the guys like Boeta Dippenaar, guys like, there's so many other guys I can mention that got way longer time to settle in than what these players are getting. It's literally like we're hoping for someone to hit the ground running and score centuries on their debuts and go on and score 50s consecutively. We're looking for guys to do what Rassi's doing, which is the anomaly. That's the one. That's the exception to the rule. You can't expect every single player to be like that. I mean, like the New Zealand got lucky with Devon Conway to be able to play him and on his debut and continuously scoring like that on a consistent basis. Milan did that, but now in this particular case, you've got Aiden Markram, who you believe is the future, so you back the youngster. So I understand that from that perspective. Now we're in a difficult situation over here because we are left with the guys that were the junior guys. Basically, they were the guys that were seen lesser than the bigger guys. Amla, all the stars are gone. It's not like Faf is gone too. He was the last puzzle of that amazing teams that were dominating. Because Dean came into the fold, yes, we were looking for its opener, and he clicked, yes, with the likes of Faf, etc. But he didn't necessarily play a lot of games with Colours and Graham Smith and all the heroes that we speak about consistently. I mean, Faf at least knows them, how they think, what they do, all of those type of things. So we're in a very, very difficult situation where we need our young by test caps players to step up and be the senior guys. And the guys that have the test caps, other than KG Rabada now, need to look and search for form.
If I can just jump in here, I mean, like I was talking about earlier, I was mentioned the word benchmark. So if we constantly use 2012 as a benchmark, we're going to be disappointed as fans, right? That's a given. But let's for a second here use 2018 as a benchmark when we got whitewashed by Sri Lanka at home. Dean Elgar wasn't scoring runs. Aiden wasn't scoring runs. Rabada, how long has it been since Rabada took a 5-wicket haul before West Indies? Ngidi, Ngidi was a bit dodgy. We weren't 100% sure what was going to happen with him. Dwayne Pretorius, nowhere player. Quinton de Kock wasn't scoring runs. We just won. We're about to beat the West Indies 2-0 away from home. This is our first away series win since 2016. Olga's scoring runs again. Markram's solidified his place in that side. The holes 3, 4, and 5. De Kock scoring runs again. Mulder's bowling extremely well. He's a much better bowler than we've had for a while in that all-rounder position. Rabada's back. Ngidi's bowling well. Nokier's bowling well. So let's use 2018 as a benchmark, and we've taken more than a step forward. We've just beaten a team ranked higher than us away from home 2-0, or hopefully we win 2-0. You never know with our bowling, but you start using that as a benchmark, and things don't look as bad as they were two years ago. We've got a lot of cricket coming. We've got India coming for 3 tests. We're going to Australia for 3 tests, and then we're going to New Zealand for 2 tests, if I'm not mistaken. Who knows? Maybe we draw to India at home. That'll completely change things. I think we'll go with the same 11 against India pretty much. Maybe Verma comes in for Verena.
Sorry, those are 2 away series. Those are 2 away series and 1 home, right? So that India's at home and then
India's at home and Australia and New Zealand are away. Yeah.
Away.
Oh, when is that?
Oh, boy.
Do you know when
I'm
it is?
100% sure. So India come December, and then I think we go to New Zealand in Jan or Feb, somewhere around there, like Feb. Yeah.
So we're gonna get India again Boxing Day, New Year's.
Correct. But
So
at home,
Conway,
let's
Devon
call
scoring
a
100
spade.
against us. Is Devon scoring 100?
Let's call a spade here, guys. So India have never beaten us here. That counts in our favor. That means something. Okay, we haven't lost in Australia in the last 3 series. I know that different teams, different everything. We haven't lost there since I had hair the last time we lost there. New Zealand have never beaten us in a test series ever. They've literally never ever beaten South Africa in a test series. Granted, the last time we played them was 4 or 5 years ago. It was a different set of circumstances. They've gone this way and we've gone that way.
It's
But
amazing.
for
eh?
us,
Yeah,
for us to
I was
lose,
thinking about
for us to lose those 3 series, those are 3 very unlikely events that need to occur for us to lose these 3 series. We've just won 2-0 away from home. Chill. You know, we've beaten Sri Lanka at home, step in the right direction. They're a weak side, but we've beaten them at home. We've beaten West Indies away from home. They've got a decent fast bowling attack. It's decent. It's not great, it's decent. Let's stick with these guys, let's back them, and let's give them India, let's give them Australia, let's give them New Zealand, and then we'll see what happens.
People forget, right? Like New Zealand are playing the ICC Test Championship at the moment, right? The final. People are often forgetting that they also went through a slump not that long ago, around about when Elgar made his debut. They were skittled by South Africa at Newlands for 45. I don't know if the guys remember that, but the ball was doing this in Newlands, right? And these guys had no answer to it. It was one of Brendan McCullum's first tests as captain. And, their backs were against the wall. New Zealand weren't considered formidable opposition. And look how far they've come since 2012, 2013. And unfortunately, they were rivaled by South Africa at their prime. And Dan is quite right. It's amazing how the tides have changed. And that's how it goes in sports sometimes,
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I brought up this topic. That's why I thought about this topic. That's why I asked you guys specifically to come on the show as well. I did ask a couple of other guys as well. Unfortunately, they couldn't. But I wanted to give you guys a balanced view because I do think that South African fans are a little bit too harsh on our players. We want them out too quickly. And sometimes, Aditya, you would see it on Facebook a lot. They call for people's heads just because they a certain color. Sometimes they just call a person because they don't like the player. And it's like, for example, people wanted Lungi to be dropped. There were a lot of comments talking about Lungi getting dropped for the second test. And for Marco Jansen, who's never played a red ball game he's played a couple of domestic games in red ball cricket. Like it's ludicrous that you can get a 5-4 and you can still your head is on the chopping board. So like at what point do we give people an opportunity and back them as fans? And I think as a community, as a fan base, Aditya, do you get the same type of vibe in the India setup? Do you get the same type of reactions?
Look, I think, when we decided that this is what we're going to talk about tonight, I have to say that I did laugh a little bit just because my perspective is completely different. In India and might as say Pakistan as well, our reactions to losses are far more emotional and far more dramatic. Back in 2007 when India dropped out of the World Cup in the league stage itself, players' effigies were burnt. These players could not go home directly. Players who came, it's, for example, for someone who's flying into Mumbai, player couldn't fly into Mumbai directly. He'd have to fly to a smaller town and then take a connecting flight to Mumbai so that no one would guess when this player has arrived. There'd be people, thousands of fans waiting outside homes for days, pelting stones into their houses. And they needed extra security and things like that. So, and I think one story that really gets to me is that Sachin Tendulkar, who is possibly the most loved cricketer ever. He was adored and then revered. And he made his debut in 1989, outstanding. He was anointed, the greatest ever, just years into his career. And in 2006, possibly a year or two after he had that tennis elbow injury that really contributed to a drop in form, India were playing England in Mumbai, his home ground, and Sachin was batting. He ended up scoring 1 of 21 balls. He was dismissed, and while he was walking back, the Mumbai crowd, which has loved him, adored him, and revered him since 1989, were booing him. He is Mumbai's.
Wow.
I promise you, there are families that have fasted for him when he's been playing cricket. There are trains have delayed their scheduled departures when Sachin is batting on 99. That's the effect that he's had on a country, and he is the guy.
He's the original influencer.
Exactly.
Before the
And
Kardashians or Sachin Tendulkar.
exactly. And when in 2007, when he returned to Mumbai, there were people who were throwing stones into his houses. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that ever? Now, and similarly in Pakistan, there is a history of Pakistani fans, like back in the day, taking their TV sets and just dumping them out of their windows when Pakistan would lose games. This is legitimate stuff. It has happened. So in comparison, when I've been listening to you guys, and you'll think that you're too hard on South African cricketers. I think of what India has been through over a long period of time, and I'm like, I think you guys are quite kind and mild, because when Faf du Plessis returns from the 2019 World Cup, having lost I think three games, his first three games, and then ultimately dropping out of the tournament, he can come back to Cape Town and walk around without being heckled.
Oh,
MS Dhoni.
Yeah, we'll even go to his restaurant, buy a steak there.
Exactly. MS Dhoni, who was still a newcomer in 2007, needed to be taken out of the back entrance of the airport, away from media attention and away from angry community members, to protect him from people throwing stones at him and burning his effigies. So, I don't know. Are South African fans too harsh? You do get snide comments, and sometimes you are, but I think that's more of a reflection of technology and the fact that everyone has a voice now with Twitter, and it gets to players. Of course, it does. If we read Twitter for an hour, we're going to be exhausted. So I can only imagine what a player goes through. But in saying that, I think where I feel that South African cricket is going a bit wrong is that I don't think they've learned the best practices of other teams that have done well. I feel like South Africa should be looking a lot more closely at how India is developing its domestic cricketers and preparing them for international cricket. Let's not forget that when the West Indies had come to India, Prithvi Shaw made a century on debut. And sure, he's out of the reckoning now for a variety of reasons. But similarly, Shubman Gill, he played his first Test series in Australia against the likes of Cummins, Hazelwood, Lyon, and Stark, and he scored 2 half centuries, one of which was instrumental to India winning that series in Australia. So I think I think the trouble is that South African fans have been used to such a high standard of cricket, ever since readmission, that now when the South African team performs the way it does in an inconsistent manner, it hurts fans, and I can understand that. But what I do think is that there needs to be a lot better communication from the team management and from CSA, and there needs to be a better effort to sort of communicate a structure that is in place to help develop players, which unfortunately I don't think is there at the moment. But with this new domestic structure, hopefully that will contribute to a more competitive nature of cricket and ultimately prepare cricketers to be a lot more equipped to handle the rigors of international cricket. So I think, to me, that's what the focus should be on, and I think public sentiment is fickle. You do well, everyone's going to be flying, as we saw after the first Test match. one innings now, 6 wickets have fallen, and suddenly the tide is turned. So, I mean, let's think about it. Khalid, you and I, we were talking about keg balls this afternoon, and right now we're talking about what South African batsmen need to do technically to. So, you guys can't take it too seriously.
Yeah,
I remember a story. Sorry, I did it. The story was fascinating about Sachin Tendulkar. I would never have expected him to ever get booed in Mumbai of all places, right? Because I can tell you, when he's ever come to Newlands, you would get like I don't know, Dad, you could come in here, but you would get like a roaring like ovation of sort. Even the guy hasn't even come to the creases yet, right? Like people are like waiting in anticipation for this guy to come to the crease. Same with Brian Lara. Those guys have got like a sort of aura about them, and it's surprising to hear that this is ultimately what happened in 06. Because I remember that World Cup quite well. The 07 that didn't go to plan. The knock stages, the guys got knocked out in the group stages, and there's like this unfortunate legacy. I remember Ganguly when he was captain. And they would actually beat Pakistan in the away series against Pakistan. I remember they would bring biryani to Saurav's house and stuff like that. There'll be like fans all over and stuff like that. I mean, that's incredible. But for the life of me, I never would have thought that Tendulkar would have been booed by his own fans in Mumbai of all places. Never would have guessed it. Because it certainly won't happen Port of Spain through that. It was Brian Lara.
Yeah, I mean, there are people. He's literally considered to be one of the most important post-independence figures in India. There are mothers, who are like 60, 70-year-olds who consider Sachin to be their son and not their actual son. They fast for him. There are superstitions that people have that when Sachin was batting, we're not going to watch the TV because every time we switch the TV on and he's batting, he gets out. So, and when he doesn't do well, that hurts. That hurts quite a lot.
You must try to fast for Quinton as well when he's in 96.
I'm not fasting for anyone, but you not a chance.
They had to have 2 cheeseburgers around there. This is for 99. This is for 100.
I respect that like a lot. Like that's proper commitment. But you see, when cricket is almost like I don't want to say like a religion, but it's a culture there. It's so big there. It's the only sport, that is like really a massive sport over there. We're lucky enough to have like a couple of sports to support here in South Africa. We've got a lot of niches. And remember, we're only 60 million people. Compared to 1 billion, that's different numbers there we're talking about over there. So yeah, I think Aditya kind of just threw the whole topic out of the window basically to say that we're not we actually not harsh enough on our players. Maybe we should be protesting there outside.
I actually know where Dale Steyn. I know where Dale Steyn lives. Maybe we should go throw some stones at him. How do you lose to Sri Lanka at home? Go throw stones at him.
Actually goes to your Nando's next door, Dan. He goes to.
Oh, there you go. There you go. I'll wait for him and I'll throw stones at him.
And give him some chicken livers.
So where to from here is basically the next question I want to ask. And Dan, I want to pose this to you. We don't get you on the show a lot. And I mean, the thing that I think we should be doing is that when we identify talent, our talent identification from a scouting level, convener of selectors level, they need to be watching our domestic games and saying, look here, like Peter Maroney was at some of the last couple of games of the domestic season last season. He came to the game, they flew him down. He was sitting at Newlands in the media box with us, listening to our insight because we're there every single game. We obviously know the players a lot better than maybe he does, the local players. They come around, he flew around to different games watching those players. They should identify those players and then take them and put some money aside. Well, if they can find money. I don't know where they're going to scrape the money. Maybe they have a money tree in the backyard. But ultimately, they need to take those guys, create an SAA tour, a proper tour, where these younger guys or these guys that are next in line need to go play more regularly against the Englands, need to play more regularly against the Australias of the world, the Indias of the world, and go and play SAA games a lot more so that they can get used to it. So that they can really get used to the conditions overseas. They can get used to the way the ball moves, the different types of balls, all of those things. So by the time they get their test debut, they can do what Cullis and AB and I mean, they took about 6-7 games to settle in. Some of them, majority of them. I mean, Graham Smith after like 4 innings scored or 4 games or something like that, scored a double century already or third game. Something say numbers. I mean, you need your guys to be used to it, like Graham Smith said. And I don't want to talk from Graham because I don't want to get to a point where it's just talk and no action. He spoke about the SAA team being the next best team that's available in South African cricket. And they were part of those SAA teams, the next best teams. The competition was strong. We weren't just giving guys, youngsters a chance and people an opportunity just to learn about the game. It's the next best team, the guys that are pushing for those spots in the Test 11. South Africa is at the perfect stage for that type of development plan because there are spots up for grabs. I don't think anybody's position in the batting lineup is 100% safe, to be honest. That's how I feel currently. I think that Dean Alga was really good, really good for the last 3-4 years. But even him, he's also becoming a bit inconsistent in times that we need him. Maybe this particular series is not an example of that, because obviously we can see that he did score a dog. He put us in the winning position in the first place, to be able to be in a situation where we are currently now looking at probably winning this Test series as it's going. Because yes, we have a collapse, but we still have 200 plus lead on the board, and so it's not about the winning of the Test match that's my concern. Yes, we can go ahead and we can win it, but what do we learn from it? That's my biggest thing. What outcomes? What is Carl going to walk away with? What is Keegan going to walk away with? Whatever they take away from this must make them better players. Whatever Dean Alga walks away with must make him a better captain. Whatever Aiden learns from the series, he needs to learn from in his next series. We saw, obviously, Dan, you would have seen it, the drastic change in Aiden's approach when he needs to fight it out a bit and needs to be that guy. But the inconsistency of his partner at the other end as well is also causing a problem. When last have they put on a partnership together in South African colours? So where to from now, Dan? What do you think we should do next?
So let me make 2 points. So for one, the first point is South African batsmen are not prepared for Test cricket when they come into Test cricket. I think we can generally agree that. They have these bloated numbers, and they average 50, 60 at a franchise level and then 20, 30 at a Test level. So how do you get them better prepared for Test cricket? So how is it possible that South African domestic rugby is so poor, yet we are the strongest rugby team in the world? It's because 80% of our squad is playing overseas. You know, I would have zero problem with the next in line guys, Reynald van Tonder, Zubair Hamza, Tiennes de Bruin, Carl Verreynne, to all be playing cricket in England. Let them play their cricket in England. Doesn't matter. The quality of the bowlers at a county level are a lot better than they are at a South African franchise level. They've been facing guys like Carl Abbott and Duane Olivier and Morne Morkel and Falanen, you know, Dane Patson and those kind of guys. Not anymore.
Now county cricket's gonna shoot because all our bowlers are bowling there.
100%. So there's the argument that you may be better prepared for Test cricket playing elsewhere. So I'm fine if our domestic cricket were to take a tank if the next in line guys are still playing at a high level of cricket. So that's one argument that you can do an entire podcast on. Secondly,
but will you be coming?
The difference between 100%. The difference now between the Proteas and the best sides in the world. Our opening batsmen are as good as their opening batsmen, in my opinion. They're in thereabouts. Our keepers are as good as their keeper. Our bowlers are as good as their bowlers. The massive difference is 3, 4, 5. Australia have Labuschagne and Smith. India have Virat Kohli. England have Joe Root. Pakistan have Babar Azam. We don't have that guy. We don't have the world class 3, 4, 5, and you only need one. You really only need one. I'm not asking for Amla, Callis, and De Villiers. I'm asking for a world-class middle order batsman. Now, I want to make some controversial statements here. Each player has a ceiling where you know what you're going to get from this player. They've hit their ceiling and you know what you're going to get from them. My opinion is Rassie van der Dussen and Temba Bavuma have hit their ceiling. They're 32 and 31 years old, respectively, I think. I stand to be corrected. They're all turning 32 and 31. Graham Smith was 33 when he retired. We've got maybe a year or two left from Rassie and Bavuma. A half a test championship or one full test championship. I would have zero issue with them picking Keegan Peterson, Reynald van Tonder, and Carl Verreynne and say, cool, you guys are 21, 24, and 26 or 27. You can form our 3, 4, and 5 for literally the next 10 years. And you just fucking back them. You say, like, we will not drop you. You're not going to get dropped if you fail 3, 4, 5 times. We are going to back you with everything that we have. He has an entire test championship. You can have the entire test championship to mold into those roles. Because right now what's going to happen, sorry to interrupt, is we'll pick Rassie and we'll pick Bavuma. And at the end of the test championship, we'll have to replace them. It's going to happen. At the end of this test championship, we lose Olga, we lose Bavuma, and we lose Rassie. So 3 of our top 5 are gone. In the next 2 years, they're gone. And then we're going to rebuild again. We're going to be the West Indies. We're going to be rebuilding for 2 fucking decades. Throw those oaks in. Fucking do it. Throw in Van Tonder, throw in Keegan Peterson, throw in Carl Verreynne, and back them to the ends of the flipping world. Tell them that they literally have 2 years in Test cricket to prove themselves. And by the end of the Test championship, maybe the Test championship doesn't go well, but I guarantee you the next one will go better. I guarantee it.
Yeah, exactly my point. I wrote a column in 2016 saying this exact thing. I said we at the point where Amla's going to retire. We could see that Amla's career was going down the order a little bit. And we were at the point where Faf du Plessis was looking at retiring already. We were at the point where Dale Steyn was looking to retire. AB de Villiers was still in the setup. Why did we not identify young talent, put them into the test setup and say, look here, guys, we're going to back you for the next couple of years. Let's go and build for the next test championship. We knew at the beginning of when Boucher took over, we knew we were not going to win the test championship. Every flipping person in the world, and if you wanted to think on a mathematically a thumb suck, say that we were going to make it, there was no way we were going to make this test championship final with the players that we had available to us. At that point, why do we not try and groom the next generation of talent? Why can we not identify them and say, look here, we're going to back you? Like exactly like Dan is saying. Aditya, I think I've said this to you on multiple streams already, that for me, it's not an issue against Rassie van der Dussen. It's not an issue against Temba Bavuma. It's not an issue against Dean Elgar. That is not what I'm saying. And that's not what I've never ever been saying. I respect them as people and I respect them as cricketers. I respect their roles in South African cricket. But the only way our next generation is going to learn, AB de Villiers came into a dressing room and looked around him and saw guys like Graham Smith and Herschel Gibbs. I don't know about Herschel Gibbs, but Graham Smith, Herschel Gibbs, yes, Jacques Kallis, Sean Pollock. The names you can rattle off your tongue, names that you can look at, young boys walking into a dressing room with personalities like that. The amount of one test tour will open up his mind completely onto how to think as a test cricketer. We don't have the opportunity to do that. So you're either built for the next test championship because it runs over 2 years, or we just continuously pick what we think is the best players and continue losing. Like I said again, a 30 from a 35-year-old is less valuable than a 30 that Carl Verreynne got, 27 that Carl Verreynne got. Carl Verreynne will learn from that experience because of his roof and where he can grow to. I don't see, like you say, can Rassie and Temba Bavuma become a Shashin Tuduka in 2 years? No, there's not enough time for them to get there, to even get to that position, to be able to be those type of players. They will be able to hold the glue together in the squad, and influence is vital. Put them in the squad. By all means, put them in the squad. I don't mind putting them in, having them in the squad to teach these guys. But identify our top 5 and top 6 and say, guys, we're backing you till the end. Quinton is still young enough to become that leader. We have a spine. Quinton, Aiden, KG, Lungi, Keshav. We've got a spine of at least 5 players in the team that have enough experience and have been, at least 3 of them have been the best in their position in the world. Quinton de Kock was for a long time the best wicketkeeper batsman in the world, probably still is one of the best wicketkeeper batsmen in the world. KJ Rabada, still one of the best fast bowlers in the world. Keshav Maharaj, arguably the best spinner currently in the world, one of the best spinners, at least in the top 5 spinners in Test cricket in the world. You've got world-class players there. You've got guys that are world-class players. So build a team around them. Create the next generation of Test championship. If they lose, like Dan said, the next Test championship, then what happens? They learn from that, and then they play again. By that Test championship, they'll be playing against guys maybe the similar age as them that also come into the system that are new. Because by that time, the second Test championship, India's going to lose a lot of their players. England's going to lose a lot of their players. Think about it. Where Carl and them are reaching their peak, a lot of them, the other teams are going to be in their transitional phases. And then by that time, they would have enough experience to bring the next youngster in. The Bryce Parsons, the Marco Janssens, all of the other under 19 players that are doing exceptionally well around in their franchise. But we're not creating an environment for these youngsters to come in and learn. You're creating an environment where a youngster comes into his first ODI series against the best team in the world and he's captaining the fucking side. That's the difference that we're working with. So I don't know. Ravi, if you want to chip in here, please.
Yeah, boy, Aditya has been waiting in the wings. I'm happy to give him a go.
Yeah, Aditya.
It's all right, man. You can continue. I think you have a better insight. I'm very happy to be listening right now.
So,
Just guys, let me just interrupt. Just make Markram captain. We'll be the best team in the world by 2023. Trust me. Make Markram captain. It's all sorted. Bring Verena in. Done.
I've got no issue with Elgar being captain. In fact, I think he should have succeeded straight from the outset. But I agree with Dan that these individuals that we mentioned tonight all have a lifespan. They've hit the proverbial ceiling. I don't think Rassi or Temba are going to score the big 200, 300 or break Brian Lara's record anytime soon. But what I will say is that I agree we need to start blooding in the youngsters. In fairness to Temba Bavuma, though, the last 5 or 6 tests, the way tour of Pakistan particularly, I thought he played quite well. But again, the argument comes in, he's been around since the 2014, 2015 inbound tour of the West Indies. That was his debut series. How long is long enough, you know? But I think we're at a point now where, had it not been for the injury, you might have seen something special from Temba. Who knows? Hard to say. But coming back to the area of scrutiny, I agree our bowling attack is fine. Our opening pair is perfect. I've got no issue with Alga and Markram opening the batting. 3, 4, and 5 is under scrutiny, and rightfully so. More specifically, position 3. We need to look at that very carefully. I agree with Dan wholeheartedly. We don't have a Baba Razak. We don't have a Virat Kohli. And I've been bellowing this from the time I had an opportunity to engage with Reynald van Tonder, but I've been saying this, that this man should be considered. He should get a place. He's been knocking on the door. He's got the potential to leapfrog other players into the team. And it's those sort of decisions, those selection decisions, that will move the needle in South Africa's favor.
Yeah.
It's very interesting, though. Like
I'll stand by that. He's the next big thing. I'm backing this guy 100%. I guarantee you, 10 years from now, they're going to be erecting statues in his honor. Okay, maybe
the way you bring him into the side, though, like we never used to bring a youngster and debut them at 3. Amla came into the side at 6. Abby de Villiers came in down order. Faf made his debut at 6. All of a sudden, we pick Hamza and we're like, okay, Lacquer, you're playing at New Zealand. You're going to face Stuart Broad, James Anderson, Jofra Archer, and whatnot.
I don't
And
know. Like
why?
maybe I remember
Please
we
explain
opened
this logic to me. Keegan Peterson has outperformed Rassie van der Dussen at a provincial level. We all agree with that. Then Rassie
Yep.
was told to bat at 3 at an international level. He's not a 3. Why didn't we pick Keegan Peterson ahead of him? If Keegan's going to come in and bat at 3 and he is a 3, why did Rassie make
You
his
see,
debut? You know, like it's
the wobbliness from the management is irritating me because on the one side they say we must pick on domestic form, or we want to what was the exact words they used? We want to reward domestic performances and consistent domestic performances. So when Boucher came in, he gave people chances that were doing well at domestic level, etc., right? Then we gave a guy like Zubair Hamza an opportunity because why? Because he had a really great season. 2-3 seasons before that, he had a great season. They give him an opportunity. But he performed well in his opening 4 matches, or for opening 2 series, in very difficult circumstances, replacing one of the greatest batsmen that we've had in the number 3 position. Then he has a difficult series against England when the ball is moving a hell of a lot and he's facing against world-class bowlers, and then you drop him. Gone forever. Even Tiernis de Bruyne I have an argument for, because he was averaging consistently over 60 in every single season. You play him there, they gave him an opportunity, but different coaches. But consistently, we're not protecting our players and allowing them to learn from the senior players. Are we that scared to give our serious? Are we that? Okay, how shit? I'm not gonna get baited baited by you again and fished in by you. Okay, so what I want to try to say is that we don't give our guys an extended run of games to say, look here, go and play. I mean, Carlos, De Villiers, Graham didn't score hundreds and 60s or 50s on debut in their first 2 series. They didn't. I mean, those are some great guys that we're talking about over here. The way England took Pope, put him at 6, protected him against South Africa, who they knew was maybe probably a walk in the park for them as a series, because the form that England was coming into that game with as well, they were a top team. They are one of the top teams. Yes, they're also struggling with their own batting lineups, etc., and finding their pieces to the puzzle. But the difference there is they have world-class positions in there to kind of carry the team. They should be giving people a longer opportunity, but they need to also be very clear with us on what their approach is going to be. Because I wrote a column recently about Boucher's approach and whether it's been right or wrong. And I said, if they just were clear with us from the start, saying we are going to be searching for our best players that come into the international setup and can be our next generation of talent for the next Test Championship, we're building a team. In Test cricket, they're not going to understand. I can understand their current approach when they're trying to build for a tournament, because they need to win that tournament now. So because they need to win that tournament, the T20 tournament right now, they need to pick the best players that have been in form in the last 3 seasons, that whether they're 30, 60, 80, I don't care. They need to pick the best players that are available to us in South Africa to go and compete. There's no experimenting in a World Cup. There's no experimenting with age in a World Cup. You either back those youngsters from 2 years ago, or you giving the best players that you have in the country the opportunity to play. But when you have a Test Championship that lasts over 2 years, and you basically had a whole year to find the next generation of talent and give them a long extended run, like, for example, Reinhard van Tonder, like, for example, the next fast bowling talents that we have in the country, like Gerald Coetzee, should be traveling with the team. Maybe not, because he hasn't had enough. At what point have you had enough domestic games to be able to say that you are good enough talent to be able to go play? Sears didn't. Look at, he's having an excellent learning opportunity here with the West Indies currently. I mean, that boy has been back. They've identified him as the next generation of talent and put him in. Kaiji Rabada, the same thing was happened to him and Quinton de Kock. They were identified as the next generation, but they walked into dressing rooms with people that are already world-class in their positions. South Africa don't have that currently. So where does that experience have to come from? The coaching staff then. We don't have a batting coach. We're sitting with a manager or a Boucher, Charles Langeveld. Charles Langeveld has been excellent. Look what the difference does when you have a good bowling coach. We had Cullis for a stint, and then he goes off to England. We need someone that can play, that has played international cricket all over the world, that has the experience, that can bring that experience into the dressing room. Because you don't necessarily need the experience necessarily on the field. It can work if you have that experience in the dressing room. Because my thing is, you can learn from their experiences and the stories they've told and the way they read conditions. But guys, I'm going to wrap it up here. I think we're going to go and watch some of the cricket again, and let's go watch. Let's enjoy it. We gave you an excellent podcast. I hope we can continue this conversation. Apologize for the swearing. My part, I got a little bit worked up. Dan gets me like that sometimes. But
you guys are bad for each other. You guys are bad for each other.
But also great for the views. So, guys, I hope you can come on again, Dan. We really enjoyed to have you here. Ravi and Aticha are regulars, of course, so I'm not going to be saying it again and again and again, but thanks a lot for coming on the show. To the new guys, new year, please subscribe to the channel, click that notification bell for all future videos, please, and smash the like button, comment, share, subscribe, do all of those things. Hound Dan on Twitter, at Dan Cricket 93 to come on the Cricket Fanatics Magazine show again. But thanks a lot for watching, guys, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow with another review show at 12 and obviously a daily show at 7. Take care, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your week and the cricket.